Good morning, Alice Pavin. Good to
Good
have you
morning.
again. You were my
Thank you.
guest back in episode 51.
That's true. Yeah.
You're working with female founders and female entrepreneurs, but you're also a well-being coach and practitioner. Um, Maybe for the people who didn't listen to the first episode, how did you get into your current role?
Mm, yes. And the current role is also slightly different
Uh,
from the last episode. So I
yeah,
think it's good for everyone. Yeah, my journey. Um, my journey is deeply connected into what I believe in, which is fundamentally that we live this life and the life is to be feeling alive, right? We don't want to walk around feeling numb. We want to live life fully.
yeah,
And that is very connected to living your truth. There's something here you came for. There's
yeah.
something that feels authentic and alive, right? Yet we get molded in many ways to be in a certain way, to live in a certain way, to work in a certain way, to have partnerships in a certain way. And my experience and many other women and people that I've been speaking to is that everything can look great on the paper. Everything is perfect from the outside. And there's nothing really much to complain about, but yet something feels off, right?
Mm-hmm,
Something is missing, something you can't really shake.
mm-hmm,
And for me, I call this the whisper. It's the body starting whispering, telling you something. And maybe you can go some time without listening, but over time, if you don't, it starts knocking louder and louder and louder and asking you to listen. Um, and this is connected to my own path because from quite an early age, I understood that I wanted to help people feel better.
yeah.
And then I believed the way to do that was through innovation, impact entrepreneurship. So at 17, I started my first company. Then I moved to London, worked in a startup, started studying psychology in London at UCL, got involved in investment, as you know,
Mm-hmm,
headed up the investment fund at the university, then accelerated incubator, moved countries, came to the Netherlands, and started working then with impact entrepreneurs and women.
mm-hmm,
And all of this work I really enjoyed. Um, I couldn't say it in any other way, and it's really important work, but still I felt that something wasn't fully there, right?
mm-hmm,
And the truth is I always knew what it was because I didn't work directly with people, with their inner worlds, with their selves.
mm-hmm.
Um, so what I did last year was looking at something I call now my spiritual CV. And this is my partner Pablo that brought this concept into my mind. It is basically the things that you've been doing because your heart has been telling you, not because it sounds good or because you expected it or because it gives you money.
Mm-hmm.
So what did I do? I learned meditation during a Vipassana retreat in Thailand. I went to Mexico for yoga teacher training. I studied meditation in Portugal. I lived with a monk in Sri Lanka. I stayed at ashrams in India.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a pattern. At the same time,
Yeah.
with through the work I did previously in impact entrepreneurship as well, the thing that was closest to my heart was also that balancing of the feminine and masculine,
Mm-hmm.
right? In business and in the individuals, finding that balance and well-being programs. So looking at all of this is a central theme, which is going inwards to understand who you are,
Mm-hmm.
loving that part of you, and then
Yeah.
aligning life, right? So this is then what I've been doing for myself and what I now full-time focus on for founders. So if I would say it in one sentence, it's helping these ambitious women to go from this mind-centered overdoing
Mm-hmm.
to heart-centered balanced being.
Yeah. To what extent does it sort of also go back into the balance between masculine and feminine values?
Mm.
Does it also balance that out, you think?
So my work is focused on finding that inner balance, and
Mm-hmm.
that can be many different ways. So, for example, it can be in this between the doing, the
Mm-hmm.
overdoing, the overthinking, the overactivity, and the just being, right? The
Mm-hmm.
spaciousness of that. It could also be in the masculine and the feminine. It can be between the mind and the heart. It's about striking that balance, and that balance might not look 50-50 for you. I think we also mentioned this in the last podcast that it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be equal, but it's about what is true to you, right?
Yeah.
So indeed, it still involves this feminine and masculine, but it's bigger than that.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing you say is that it's deeply personal also, that it's something that isn't sort of copy paste. You do a framework and then you apply that to your life and then everything will be okay because the balance can be different for different people.
Yes, indeed. Exactly like that, which is the beautiful part, but
Mhm.
also the tricky part, because that means you need to listen to yourself. You need to
Yeah.
know what's the truth for you, you know? Um, Hence that whisper, because as I said, it starts getting louder and louder and louder. And many people face stress, anxiety, burnout. Burnout is not necessarily coming from working too hard, but it's coming from working too hard against your true selves.
Yeah. Doing something that you sort of don't feel as the right thing to do or as the fully right thing to do.
Yeah, not aligned,
Yeah, not
doesn't feel
sorry.
aligned.
That was the word I was looking for. Thank you. Um, so you just spent a month in Sweden, and when we spoke before, you mentioned that it was like really silent there. Only you could literally hear your own whispers, I think.
Mm,
So how did it uh, change the way you create work and decisions for yourself? How
mm.
did it help you on your own journey?
Yeah, indeed, it was very silent. I'm from Sweden, right? But I'm
Yeah.
from the most southern part, Malmo, not
Uh-huh.
from the north. And I was thoroughly surprised over how few people, how silent it is, how much just forest and lakes there are.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I went there with my incredible partner Pablo. And actually, to just mention, we didn't go necessarily for the silent. We went right because we met earlier this year in India, and we both feel like it's important to not wait until we need perhaps couples therapy in 5 years, but
Uh-huh.
already now start working on really truly getting to know each other. Which kind of life do you want to build, and building that intimacy? So basically prevention rather than treatment, right?
Yeah.
But what that meant is that we needed a space where we are not doing, where we are not on our phones, we are not working, hence the silence. And what I noticed, first of all, which I already know from the beginning, is that this silence is hard for me. My mind, I am an active human being.
Uh-huh.
Uh, my mind wants to get things to get involved with, right, and engage with. And instead, sitting in the unknown with Pablo is more uncomfortable. But this is, of course, also worth hovering over for a bit, because it's
Uh,
this old truth that the things that actually makes us feel uncomfortable, right, are the things that
yeah, that
is
make
the
us grow.
pathway. Yeah, it's the pathway
Yeah.
for most growth,
Yeah.
transition towards who you are wanting to become. And it might be cheesy, but it's so true. So I had to go through that. And this
Uh-huh.
is what I've been going through more and more for the last year. Really, my focus 2025 has been this. And what I noticed is I am starting noticing other sensations in my body. Um, I am starting to hear what it is saying. I'm starting to move differently, Dirk-Jan.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I practice a lot of yoga. My yoga is shifting toward a completely different form of being more organic and less rigid. I'm
Uh-huh.
dancing more. Um, and I'm noticing that it is in the silent that everything rests. It's in that nothingness that everything actually resides,
Yeah.
right? Because if it's noise, you can't hear. So that silence allowed me then to come back to your question around work and decisions. It helps me to take decisions that actually are more true to me, because I can hear what is true.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. Really.
Yeah.
And I recognize that you sometimes really need silence, and also uh, sometimes it's even where I am, it's silent
Mm,
at night, but also in the morning because there's a lot of children that go to what is it to school,
yeah.
and then afterwards it's like really silent.
Mm,
And I had to do a lot of work on that to start to enjoy that
mm,
because my mind is always racing and always like busy, 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 and then
mm.
really getting, yeah, as you said, uncomfortable with just the silence being there.
Yeah. You want stimuli, something to hold on to.
Yeah, yeah, you're looking for that, and
But that's interesting, actually, what you're mentioning with the kids, because when we think about silence, we think
Mhm.
about the hearing,
Yeah.
but we have these different senses that allows us to interpret and process the outer world, the
Yeah.
external world, right? But what I notice in Sweden is that there's another form of silence, like an energetic silence, because there's nothing really happening around. There's no other people,
Mhm.
there's no other activity. It's a different silence that it's beyond the hearing that the body feels that
Yeah.
allows it to really, really relax and go into the parasympathetic nervous system.
Oh, that's and how does that then influence your body?
I'd say that, first of all, which was interesting, we thought we would wake up naturally with the sun.
Mhm.
That was kind of the idea. But there was none of this noise or energy from outside waking us up. Even if I would be in a completely silent room here, the activity of the city here in the Netherlands was still waking me up, right?
Yeah.
So I noticed that we were completely in our own flow and also moving slower. Because when you're in this calm state, you
Huh.
naturally take more time for everything, and that is fine, you know? And
Mhm.
that's also really where I wanted to get to, because it's not always easy to get there. But if you spend a month there, you manage to tip over into that state, right?
Yeah.
And with that tipping over to the state, you give your body and your nervous system an opportunity to remember how you naturally actually are feeling, like before this society, right? How we naturally were feeling in a natural state.
So it's a sort of reset in that sense?
It's a sort of remembrance.
Yeah.
It's a sort of remembrance of who we are and how we naturally would live if we were not triggered and stimulated constantly.
So now you're back.
Yes.
And one of the things we are going to talk about is the mind versus the heart.
Yeah.
Um, so initially, you had the problem yourself, and I see that with myself as well. So it's not just women who do this, but also men. Uh, a lot of the work that is being done is done from the mind and not necessarily from the heart. That leads to burnout, as you said.
Yeah.
And um, I was wondering, when did you first notice that in yourself?
Mm,
What was the first moment you got sort of felt for yourself? Hey, I'm missing something. I'm
uh,
doing something that is.
there's different phases to that
Mhm.
evolution. The first phase is about soon 6 years ago, beginning of COVID, when
Mhm.
with all this turbulence, I felt, wow, I need some stability. Let's roll out my mat every morning and start with meditation and yoga,
Yeah.
right? And this was a feeling of that. Something is not fully balanced, between the
Mhm.
mind and the heart. The mind is
Yeah.
racing too much. About 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would say that I could articulate this. And about 1 year ago, I started actually exploring how would it look like, how would it feel if I balanced it out and started tapping into more into my heart.
Yeah.
But I think there's a very important distinction to make as well here that I
Mhm.
really want to highlight. I find that today that in some circles, some people might throw a lot of dirt on the mind.
Mhm.
The mind is the seat of the suffering. Quiet the mind, and you will you will release all the suffering, and you will become into a bliss state,
Mhm.
which in many ways might be true if you manage to get there in meditation. But we are we're forgetting the fact that the mind is an amazing tool, right? It's an
Yeah.
amazing tool, but it's a tool that is made for certain um, to help you with certain things, and the mind with others, right? And the mind is made to help you get to where you want to go, but the heart is the one that tells you where to go. So, for example, if I hosted these workshops on feminine embodiment for
Mhm.
women this year, and if I told my mind, "Hey, set up a CRM system," um, set up the financial structure, they would do much better job than if I tell my heart that thing, right?
Yeah.
So the mind is great, but the heart is the one that should be choosing, you want to do this. Because if my mind would be choosing, it would probably say, well, create a workshop that will help founders to find investors in half of the time, which would be important, but not my truth, you know?
Mhm.
So it's really about using the heart to understand where to go, and then using the mind to understand how to get there.
Okay, so the heart will then sort of become the compass,
Yeah.
whereas the mind is in charge of the, well, let's say the chief operations officer who actually gets to execute on it.
Yeah, or like the heart is the co-pilot in the car, holding the map, drive here, and the mind is okay. That means I need to accelerate now. I need to pull
Yeah.
this string. You know?
Oh, yeah, I think that's a beautiful analogy, to have that co-pilot, the heart as a co-pilot.
Mm.
Um,
Instead of today when we put it in the back, lock it in the back, and say be quiet. You know, and then the mind drives alone.
yeah. So I want, before we go further, I want to just ask, how, if we don't do that, let's say if we let the mind run the show
Yeah.
completely, how does that show up in, because we talked a bit about a burnout, but that's
Mhm.
like really a phase that is not necessarily, fortunately, reached by everyone. But
Mm.
how do we sort of, what are things that we can see along the way before we reach that burnout that can trigger us to really say, well, you know, maybe I need to start looking into this a bit more.
Yes. So we kind of touched upon the fact that imbalance between the mind and the heart, or using the mind and the heart for the wrong things,
Mhm.
leads to not living your truth, not
Yeah,
feeling alive, hence not feeling good. Could
yeah.
lead to burnout, could just lead to this uncomfort in the body, unease, stress, not sleeping, not eating well, not being focused, right?
Mhm.
But the question is, how does the body communicate that? And I think it's the body, first of all, is sending these signals. For example,
Mhm.
feeling a tightness over the chest. And of
Yeah,
course, we look at that negatively, but can we shift our mind and say, wow, this is actually a gift from the body telling us here's a sign that something is off, right? So
yeah.
it's about learning what are my signs. So to give you an example from me, and this is individual for me,
Mhm.
a yes for me, the truth for me, this is right for me, this is where I want to go. I feel that in it's almost like an ice cold metallic sensation quickly coming from my feet, rippling all the way up to the top of my spine.
Mhm.
I feel it in my heart expanding, um, and I feel it in a sense of aliveness and kind of tingling in my thighs. And the last thing I can feel is goosebumps. These are
Mhm.
all things I only get when it's a yes. When I get a no,
Mhm.
my heart contracts. I can get cold, like starting freezing. My hips and my legs can start shaking. So it's not just that aliveness, but it's actually like I'm really, really cold.
Yeah.
These are the things that happen to me when I am not in my space. And I believe that the listeners and even you already know some of these things. It's about
Mhm.
taking up the notebook, just writing down, like right now, what are the things I notice with a yes? What are the things I notice with a no?
Mhm.
Second step, continue paying attention, right? Like what else shows up that I can add to that list? And then the third, which I think is in many ways sometimes the hardest, is like even though we know,
Mhm.
we're not used to trusting the body, right? We
Yeah,
prefer trusting the mind. So we
yeah,
actually don't make the changes. But yeah, learning to listen to how your body communicates is
yeah,
how you can tell when you're imbalanced.
yeah. So I heard you say something really important. We get to, we're tempted, let's say, to let the mind run the show, even though we sort of feel that it's maybe not good.
Yeah.
How do we, how do we make that shift
Mm.
from really working out of the mind
Yeah.
to working um, from the heart and letting then the mind help or execute?
Yeah. So how do we put the heart in
It,
the co-driving
yeah,
seat, right? The
yeah,
co-pilot seat, and finding that balance. Like everything, it's a muscle, right? That we
yeah,
train. It's practice. We
yeah.
just don't pick up a guitar and are perfectly playing guitar. We
Hmm.
need to go through that learning process. How do we practice the heart? It's through heart-centered practices. It's by going inwards and start listening inwards, listening to the body, listening to the heart. And if I would choose one method, meditation, right? Full stop, meditation. And a meditation where you allow yourself to drop from the mind into the body. And what I mean with that is becoming aware of what's happening in the body. So even now when we're speaking, or when you're, as a listener, is listening to this podcast, at the same time as you're listening to my words, can you become aware of the sensations in your body? Right? Are there certain vibrations that you can feel, perhaps in your fingers or toes? What is the temperature like? How does the skin, the air feel on the skin, or your textiles on the skin? How does the heart beat? How does the breath move? Is it shallow? Is it deep? Going towards the body, practicing of focusing here, allows you to slowly shift and rewire, meaning that over time you become more balanced between the two.
Yeah. So this is, at least my experience, not something you do, let's say, with one flip of a switch.
No.
It takes practice to start to, let's say, embrace the silence, but also to start feeling. The interesting thing, and for the people who are listening, I was just doing this, literally listening to Alice's voice and then feeling, okay, how do my fingers feel? Because usually my fingers are like really cold at this point of the day.
Yeah.
Why? In part it's because of sugar, and there's a lot of blood flowing through my to the core of my body to process it. But also, uh, what I found really interesting is that you said, um, if you have really cold hands, if something doesn't work, if it's a no for you. So I was trying to feel, okay, how does this conversation feel? And I was a bit anxious up front because this is a topic that is not generally associated with entrepreneurship, like really working from the heart and not from the mind. Most people still associate it with working from the mind. So, but it actually felt really good, and my fingers are actually warm. So that's
That's your
quite
body
beautiful.
communicating. Yeah, it's your
Yeah,
body communicating, huh?
yeah. But it's so. How much time? That's actually a question I wanted to ask. How much time does it take to get to a stage where you really recognize these signs? How much time? Let me rephrase that, because this is the wrong question. I now realize. How much time did it take you to get through from the point like that you started to realize, okay, there's something off, to implementing the practices that you have now, to really being able to feel?
It is happening in a step by step, right?
Mm,
So every day, sense, or every week, month, I tend to move towards being able to go
mm,
deeper into it.
yeah.
Already in the beginning, I could feel the temperature in my body. You know, maybe it takes 1, 2 times, but I can feel like my hands are a bit cold. We have this ability, and it's about taking what we already can and going deeper into that sensation. You know,
Mm,
what does the body already give us? How can we move deeper? And over time that would spread, right? And
uh-huh,
also it would it has shifted the practice that I've been doing. I mentioned that meditation is, if I would recommend one thing, it's the thing to start with. But there
mm,
are many different, what I call embodied practices as well, which is this shifting, dropping from the mind into the body.
yeah.
That naturally are starting occurring for me. I told you that I move differently. I do yoga
Yeah.
differently. I
Mm,
do breathwork differently. And all of these breathwork, mindful walking, being in nature are embodied practices for me that before wasn't as profound. But
mm,
now going in nature can be a much more embodied practice than before. It's hard to tell you, did it take 1 year or 5 years?
mm,
But practicing a little bit every day, even if it's just 5 minutes in between meetings, sitting down, just feeling, how am I feeling today? Just taking 5-10 slow breaths, placing the hand on the heart, closing the eyes, and just asking, how am I feeling right now? What do I need right now? Something that might feel uncomfortable in the beginning,
Yeah.
but 5, 10, 15 times later, things will start arising.
Yeah. Yeah. Does it help to set an alarm for that?
As in for the practices?
Yeah.
I would say I have an inner alarm,
Yeah.
which is when I wake up.
Yeah.
Then it's a no-brainer. I just start my morning practice right away,
Yeah.
you know? Um, but I've heard people that do, for example, things every time they pick up their phone.
Mhm.
That's a cue that you then learn to associate with, now it's time to take 5 deep breaths.
Mhm.
Or every time I open this specific door in my house, I would
Yeah.
sit down in this chair next to the door and take this minute. You can build in these things in a way that works for you in your life. For me, it really works in the morning
Mhm.
before, as we spoke about previously, before my day starts and it starts being filled, my mind, with other
Yeah.
things.
So, I want to shift to flow as a topic for a minute. And I want to get right into practice.
Mm,
How can we shift our minds? Because you have your own morning routine. How can we shift it in such a way? Is there a practice that you can recommend to
mm,
shift your mind from, let's say, waking up and hearing all these inner voices? You have to do this. You have to do that. Oh, the kids. Oh, this. Oh, that.
mm.
To getting quiet and getting into a flow state.
Yeah. I think one of the main reasons I'm doing this in the morning, first of all, and that I would recommend that to
Mm-hmm.
people if it fits their life, is because what you do in the morning sets the stage of the day, right? If you start eating sugar in the morning, your body will start looking for that spike throughout the day. If you take up your phone right away, you will look for that dopamine kick. If you start your day by calming down your nervous system
Yeah.
and being in that state, you
Mm-hmm.
would more easily continue to flow through that state throughout the day.
Yeah.
Then the question is, how do you do this?
Yeah.
Similar to what I said before, take up a notebook and just write the things that you know you enjoy. Puts you in a calm state that makes you feel at ease and at peace. It might be taking that walk. It might be, for many women in my workshops, they mentioned that their beauty routine is a way of self-care, of connecting with themselves in presence, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Finding the things that you enjoy. Choose one of those things and then add either meditation or breathwork. And that's your morning routine. That's where you
Okay.
start. And then you can build on that. That's what I did. I started with 1 or 2 things and now I have quite a few things that I do every morning.
Okay. And in terms of prep work,
Yeah.
can you give an effective exercise or an exercise that you use to calm yourself down?
Yes. I use different breathworks depending on the output, the
Yeah.
outcome that I want to reach. What if I would recommend one that is very connected to what we're speaking today? We're
Mm-hmm.
speaking about the heart, right?
Yeah.
It is a breath work where you are breathing into the heart. So similar to what I mentioned earlier, placing a hand on the heart can help kind of reinforce that awareness there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Closing the eyes and breathing into this area, and then once you allow this heart, this awareness to expand, you can then end by asking yourself, "How am I feeling?" For example,
Mm-hmm.
um, what do I need today? As I
Yeah.
mentioned. Um, Another one connected to the heart that we actually can do, I think is very relevant for entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
and it's connected to decision making. So we
Yeah.
talked right about how the mind should not be the seat of
Yeah.
deciding where
Yeah.
to go. But how do you then get the information with the heart? Because it's harder than it sounds, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a kind of visualization meditation from the Hearth Mat Institute. This is a non-profit organization that is focusing on research and practices to go away from stress and into more peaceful state, heart-centered practices.
Mm-hmm.
And using this before going into an investor meeting, signing a new partnership, taking on a new employee, these kind of things, I think is a really, really good practice. Do you want to try it?
Yeah,
Yeah?
let's do that.
Okay.
I think before we do, so you explained a bit about half math. So is it a breathing exercise or is it what is it?
I would call it the visualization exercise, a
Okay.
meditation where we shift the focus from
And
the mind to the heart.
is it guided or non-guided? Sorry, I'm
It is
just
guided, so I will guide you through it now.
cool.
But it's a very simple exercise. It has just a few steps,
Yeah,
and you can guide yourself through this at any time where you
yeah,
just feel like, what should I do in this moment?
cool.
And if you want to build a business from a more heart-centered approach, okay, is this investor the right one for me?
Yeah,
Truly. Let's tap in, let's see. You know?
yeah.
Okay. You ready?
Let's step in.
Let's step in. Amazing. Okay. So just finding a straight spine, some sense of
Mm-hmm.
alertness in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Gently closing your eyes and connecting to your breath. Noticing how your breath moves in the body, how the breath feels. And see if you can deepen the breath, make it slower, make it a little bit longer. Perhaps you're holding some tension in your shoulders or face, just relaxing into your seated position. And then in your mind, I'd ask you to remember a stressful emotion or a challenging situation that you currently are facing. It's just bringing this challenge to life in your mind. And once you have this challenge, I want you to freeze it. So imagine taking it out of your mind, placing it on the side, just freezing it for a moment. And then making a sincere effort to shift your attention from the mind into the heart. Perhaps placing a hand on the heart and start breathing in here into the heart. Sensing the breath expanding and contracting in your chest. And bringing to mind a positive memory, something that brings you joy that has happened. Really feeling this memory and allowing this memory to expand your heart, to make it feel more warm, more energy, perhaps even bringing a gentle smile to your face. Just soaking up all that warmth, all that positivity, really feeling it. And then bringing back your challenge and asking your heart, what is the best way for me to move forward here? What is it that I truly want to be doing in this situation? And here the mind might start wanting to engage and to justify, to explain things. If it does, just thank it and put it to the side for a moment and try to tap back into that feeling in the heart. Ask in the heart, what do I want to do in this situation? It might just be a sensation, a word, a feeling. Anything that arises, just staying with that for a moment. And then gently blinking your eyes open. How does it feel?
Good. I noticed a couple of interesting things. So I've, for the listeners, I have to handle my heart still. I tend to breathe through my tummy,
Mm,
so I don't feel a lot of, let's say, expansion in my rib cage.
mm,
But that just this, I know that for some people they breathe much more into the chest, and some other people breathe more into their belly. Second thing I noticed, so the struggle I imagined is I'm working on this app,
mm,
AI app, and I've convinced myself that I need to start to learn to code.
mm,
And for some reason or another, that's sort of not happening.
mm,
Like I've I've tried twice now,
mm,
and then I get something out, and it's not, either I cannot visualize it, um, or it's just not something where I'm like, okay, yes, this is what I want.
mm,
So this is where my perfectionist self comes in.
mm,
And so I asked as you instructed, my heart, okay, so how do we feel about this, and what should I do? What do you think I should do? Or
mm,
how do you feel? What do you feel I should do? Um, and the interesting answer I got was, give it time. Just
mm,
take time. If you think if you believe you need to learn how to code,
mm,
that's fine, but give it
mm,
time.
mm,
It will come.
mm.
So in that sense, also it gave my mind a rest. Like, okay, at some point this will come, and that's whatever point that is the right point.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, first of all. And what I really like about this insight is
Yeah,
that immediately we might want to go to, oh, if you ask your heart will tell you don't code. Don't code because you're not enjoying it, you know?
mhm,
This is kind of what this is what my heart will be saying to dear
yeah.
Kian right now. That's not what the heart was saying. It said,
No,
give it time, have
yeah,
patience with yourself, you know?
yeah,
It is a very powerful practice, this one. Uh, and it had helped myself and many of my clients as well a lot
yeah.
in these decisions.
Is this also just going back for a minute to what you just said, the observation you just shared? So you'd think that my mind would be saying, hey, or my heart would be saying, no, 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 you don't feel, if you don't feel like coding, don't
Mm,
do it.
mm-hmm,
Instead, it said, give it time.
mm,
It's okay.
mm,
But the fear of the mind interfering and
yeah.
say, thinking like, okay, but I know what the heart will tell you, because the
Mm,
heart will tell you that you don't have to code. And I think you need to code, so learn to code. So that's the internal chatter. Is that internal chatter also one of the reasons that many people don't, try this type of exercises?
you mean because of the difficulty to remove this internal chatter?
Yeah.
Of course, because we like to know how to do things, to be good at things. We don't want to
Yeah.
spend hours on something that does not work in the beginning
No.
before it starts working. So of course, this is a obstacle, to go over, but it's so worth it, because that's when you actually can start tapping into that inner wisdom that you're already holding within, right?
Yeah.
And usually I would say when you notice that it's a long explanation and it goes lots of words, this is this, that, it's usually the mind. The heart can also speak in words, right? Like you were saying, usually shorter from my experience. It's something very simple, very short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to switch to another supporting tool.
Yeah.
So there's meditation, there's guided meditation, there's breath work, and there's something we discussed up front, microdosing.
Yeah.
Maybe good to start with what is microdosing,
Yeah.
because we're not, for context, we're not talking about the recreational use of any drugs here.
Mm.
We're talking about using substances that are in some countries actually freely available. I think in the Netherlands at least, that you can use to increase performance.
Mm.
Yeah.
So what is microdosing?
Yeah.
Microdosing is taking a small subperceptional dose of a psychedelic active compound. So you mentioned here how it's legal in certain countries.
Yeah.
And in the Netherlands, for example, we have legal truffles.
Yeah.
Right. And in truffles, there's active a compound is called psilocybin. So this is the biochemical, the
Yeah.
substance. And I think what is important to highlight here is that when you microdose, you are not seeking, or you should not be feeling a high. You should not be
Yeah.
feeling a headache afterwards. You should not feel jittery afterwards.
Mhm.
It's sub-perceptional. It's beneath your perception. And it acts just as a very gentle, barely noticeable technology tool
Yeah.
help you shift certain things in your life, right?
Okay. So subperceptional, if I understand it correctly, is like you do not maybe a bit notice it, but it's not, as you said, it's not going straight to a high.
Yeah.
It's a really small dose also of the compound.
Yeah. So you do not notice as you mentioned, drug, what's used in this field of work, we used to use the word medicine actually,
Mhm.
because it has such many therapeutical effects. You don't notice the medicine, you notice the effects it has on you and your
Yeah.
life. Like,
Yeah.
for example, increased focus or whatever it might be, increased mood.
Okay. So talk to me about the benefits this has.
Mm. So we talked a lot today, right, about the
Mm.
importance of these different practices to go inwards, to tune
Yeah.
in rather than tuning out. For me, from my own experience, the absolute biggest reason why I'm using this is because it is a tool that microdosing is a tool that helps me to reconnect more to myself,
Uh-huh.
to others, and to nature. It's basically taking a piece of nature that allows me to connect better to that. And of course, because I'm nature as well, it helps me
Mm.
connect with myself. It helps me be more aware, more present, more in my body. Like
Uh-huh.
I move, I feel more feminine for me personally, maybe
Uh-huh.
because I am a woman. Maybe it's different for you, Dirkam, if you'd
If I
explore it.
would try, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so it's really for me about the connection to myself and nature. That's also why I use it, for example, in the nature workshops I'm doing. It's optional, but the women can decide to take a microdose to experience that feeling when we flow and when we are in nature together.
Uh-huh.
That's number one. And number two, that I also really feel, is getting into a flow state.
Yeah.
So being more focused and being able to maintain that focus and enjoyment of that for a longer time. And this is also, there's quite a lot of research on that they see with the microdosing.
Uh-huh.
So we know that there's something called a flow cycle,
Yeah.
which goes through first the struggle, then the release, then the flow, and then the recovery. So let's say you want to build you want to code,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
You have this struggle in the beginning. You don't
Yeah.
get into the flow. You're
No.
procrastinating. It doesn't happen naturally,
Yeah.
right?
Which
Perhaps you go,
which by the way is a normal way that these processes run.
yeah,
I just want to highlight that because everyone procrastinates. I think I heard somewhere that the first 10 minutes, you're not, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to get anywhere near a flow state. You need that struggle first where you're in a phase where you're like switching on, switching off, and trying to concentrate, trying to focus.
Yeah. And that struggle phase could be indeed 10, 15 minutes. It could also be hours. It could also be days.
Yeah, or in my case, months. If we talk about the coding part.
Yeah. But now your heart tells you, take it slowly,
Yeah.
have patience. So we'll see when you fall into the other, if it happens. And then you get into this release state, right?
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps you go out for a walk, you change, your mind, put it on something else, and then you're allowed to release and come back into finding this flow.
Mm-hmm.
In this flow, you're there, but you can't be there forever. So you end up needing to be in a recovery state, right?
Yeah.
What we see, what research shows us is that the microdosing shortens the struggle phase and deepens the flow state.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any insights on how that works? How it shortens the struggle phase?
The
What does it
biochemically?
do in biochemically? What does it do?
I actually don't want to say something around this right now because I don't have a clear answer, but there's a lot of research around it. And I could also include something in the show notes around this research around the flow states for people to look in a little bit more in depth.
Yeah. Well, let's do it like that.
Yeah. But what we know, what happens in general with psychedelics in a neurochemical sense, a biochemical sense, is that you have a part of your brain called the default mode network, which is the executive part of your brain. So it decides, it's a lot of neurons firing all the time. Not everything is listened to.
No.
Which brain regions can communicate with each other, which signals are actually processed. In the default mode network is also where the seat of the self is, the seat of the identity, because it is where we are experiencing the future and the past. When you take psychedelics, or when you get into deep meditation, into a deep yoga practice, we see in brain scans that the same thing happen. And that is that the default mode network decreases in its activity, meaning that the brain can communicate in new ways. The neuroplasticity increases, the ability to rewire and write new neural pathways.
Yeah.
We also see that the self decreases, hence the connection to nature, to others, to the oneness that people very much explain in spiritual experiences, right?
Yeah.
So this is what we see happen with psychedelics, especially in a higher dose. In a lower dose, this happens on a smaller scale.
Okay. If founders want to explore this microdosing, of course, read the research, take it in, decide if it's for you, yes or no. But if it's for you, what is a good protocol to use, and what is the safest way into this?
Yeah. First of all, before I go into how to microdose, let's say, I want to go into should you or should you not?
Yeah.
From my perspective. Microdosing is not something you just take in the morning and then you don't do any of your other practices. It's not a quick fix, it's nothing like that. It's a tool you can use as a complement, almost like you're increasing the strength a little bit of your already existing practices. So we're talking here about the avoiding practices like meditation, breathwork, going in nature, yoga. This that puts you in that flow state. It allows you to deepen that more. So before trying this is about actually first trying what you can do without this biochemical substance. And especially here, breathwork is the one I would recommend because breathwork can mimic quite similarly that experience of the microdose when you do breathwork. Also because that increase in oxygen decreases the default mode network. So for example, going to a yoga studio or workshop around breathwork and explore that a few times and just get to know the state of yours. Then you can add this as a holistic complement to your practices. That's the first. If you feel over time that, wow, I'm already doing this, so I started doing it, it feels good, I want to explore microdosing, there are a few things to think about that the research points to. First of them is indeed, like you're saying, following a protocol and being consistent. There are protocols, the beginner protocols called the Fadiman protocol, which means that you are 1 day taking, 2 days off, 1 day on, 2 days off. For about 1 month to 6 weeks, usually you follow a protocol. There is another one called Stammet stack, which is a little bit more for experience, where you are 4 days on, 3 days off, 4 days on, 3 days off. So it is different here. So following a protocol is important, and then tracking, because why are you doing this? You know, to create some changes in your life. How is your mood changing, your creativity, your focus, all these things. The second thing is, of course, finding the right dose. As I mentioned, you don't want to be into this feeling very perceptually the difference.
Yeah.
You don't want to crash afterwards, right?
No.
Starting lower than than the average, I would say, and then working your way up and finding that sweet spot. And usually when you take then the truffles in the Netherlands, it can be between 0.25 to 1 gram approximate. So maybe start with 0.5 grams, you know? And the other parts that is extremely important in not only these practices, but in all practices you do, first of all, intention setting. What is your intention for that day, for every day during this the period? Perhaps what is your intention for the whole period? What is the focus? You can go back in the evening. How did I do on this intention? Because intention setting in general just allows you to move forward towards who you want to be becoming, right? In a more quicker and more embodied way. And then the integration. So how do you just not leave it there, but actually seeing the microdosing or any of these practices, not as the end goal, but as a door through where you can continue working, understanding yourself and integrate this into your life and really process these experiences. Yeah. So first, to recap, starting exploring these practices, put them into place, your own embodied practices, explore breathwork. How does that feel?
Yeah.
If you want to explore microdosing, following this, have a protocol, have a structure, measure, find the right dosage, set intentions, integrate it, and have this always, doing all these things always as part of your practice.
Yeah. So how do you measure results?
Yeah. So it depends on which results you want, right?
Yeah.
What I've been, so you can measure it in which is my intention, right? For example, my intention is to, do less, be more present with myself and be okay in just being. We know how you put goals. Most female founders know that, SMART goals or whatever structure you want to use. How do you make this tangible, or OKRs, whatever, KPIs? Still very valuable tools, even if you do more spiritual things, right? It's a balance between the two. Setting those out for yourself and tracking against them. But then I also suggest a general tracking. So stuff like energy levels, mood, creativity, focus, mapping out these things. This is what I have in my protocol. And if I would do coaching with someone and we decide to pair this coaching with the microdosing, then I help them build and use this tracking system, of course.
Okay.
So measuring from 1 to 10 each day, for example, and seeing how that changes over time.
Yeah. And then also logging how that changes your quote unquote performance.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And how you feel also.
Yeah. And what is performance? I mean, performance, it can be performance in your output, but it could also be performance in not performance, as in how do I feel, my well-being, right? So both are important, right? Both are important. So building a tracking system that includes what is important to you.
Okay, final question on this. What is a sign when you've taken too much? You talked about headaches.
Yeah. From my experience, so this is also worth highlighting. I'm talking from my own experience. I'm talking from the experience of some of the people that I've helped in their inner journey by using microdosing as a tool to tap into themselves, right? So there's lots of research to look into this further. What I've experienced for myself is that I'm feeling a sense of shift in perception.
Mm,
I might notice, oh gosh, I look at this, wow, I'm really looking at this tree for a long time now,
mm,
for example. Or I'm feeling very, very energized, but I'm crashing afterwards.
mm.
And the third thing I felt is a headache after that crash. Then I should be lower, right? I shouldn't feel any of these things.
Okay, so this is important also. I think this has to do with dopamine. I'm not an expert on this, but from what I've heard on podcasts from Huberman Labs, is
Mm.
that if you take a drug to be high, it
Yeah.
increases dopamine. And that is something that's an effect that you're going to have to give back later. So the
Mm.
extra amount of dopamine, this is not exactly how it works, but it's a way of describing that I have. I'm not a medical doctor.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But the way the extra dopamine you consume as a result of a quote unquote high
Mm.
is then later you have to refill that dopamine in
Yeah.
your body.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a debt that you literally, a dopamine debt that you create to your body. Like, hey, I'm indebted.
Mm.
I understand, and that is what is causing the crashing feeling.
Yeah, indeed, the dopamine is connected to our reward system, right?
Yeah.
So in our feeling of pleasure and
Mm,
enjoyment.
mm,
So if you would activate your dopamine too much, then you would the day after when you come down feel a little bit more emptiness on those parts.
yeah.
But what actually happens with the psychedelic substance
Mm,
microdosing is that it binds to the serotonin receptors.
mm,
And this is what allows you to also move beyond and soften these more rigid thinking patterns and create these neural connections, right?
yeah.
So you increase this neural flexibility. With the dopamine, it might be the case, but I'm not sure if this is the case with this or not. So I would need to look into that. But indeed, not getting into the stage where you're feeling the crash is important. And if you do things like eating sugar, foods with high sugar content, or of course also if you're on an empty belly, you slept little, you're stressed, you will feel the effect of the microdose more. So a
Yeah.
thing like eating could also help you ground more in your body if you
Yeah.
notice that you would take too much.
Thank you for explaining this. And sort of as a disclaimer, after the fact, neither of us is a medical doctor.
Yeah.
So make sure you read your research and then also use this safely.
Yeah.
With that,
Mm.
I want to shift to my last question.
Mm. Already.
Yeah,
Darn
already.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been talking. Well, you've been talking for an hour, for most
Yeah.
of the hour.
I like
Um,
thinking. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm developing an AI coach that basically links female founders to investors.
Yes.
Uh, you originally come from that world.
Mm.
You worked at World Startup, for instance.
Yeah.
Um, so if I can tap into your brain for a moment, what's one essential element that is needed in the tool that links female founders with investors through AI
Mm.
uh, that would truly empower founders
Mm.
without replicating the biases that are in the current system?
Right. Women fundraising is a stressful moment.
Mhm.
That's one thing I got clear
Yeah,
from working with women entrepreneurs, right?
yeah,
And especially add on, as you're saying, the bias
yeah,
makes it even more stressful because
mm,
you need to once again fit and mold into a certain role, meet certain expectations that might look
mm,
different for women than they feel for men, right?
yeah,
So indeed, your platform is about increasing access to capital. But what we should not forget as well is how is that experience, that process, how is that psychological safety or that well-being
mhm,
also part of this experience for the women. So perhaps a simple thing like a micro practice to do before going into the investor room of how to actually calm down, get into the right state, you know? Another thing which I also noticed working then with impact entrepreneurship is that, and this we discussed in the last podcast, women tend to be more likely to build impact-driven companies, purpose-driven companies. What happens when you're seeking investment? Oh, you need to adhere to more extractive models, right? You need to start looking more at profit than purpose. And this creates a disalignment with the value, something that doesn't feel equally as authentic, which impacts their well-being, right? So also being able in your tool to support women to continue being purpose-driven when looking for investors, helping them find the right investors for the values and their purpose. And second of all, also helping them to communicate the indications of success of their impact or well-being metrics as well. I think these things would be very vital and you have such a great opportunity to implement stuff like that into your platform.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you do.
So what I'm hearing you say is also to sort of give space for female founders to show, to not only align, let's say, on the business case, but also on the value part.
Yeah.
With
Right?
investors, and then which sounds easy, is not. So I'm right now my mind is racing. Okay, how am I going to build that? But that's a question that probably will be answered at some point.
And it's an important question, right? Because it actually, in a very nice way, connects us back to the beginning of the first question where we talked about that whisper, right?
Yeah.
Of actually staying in alignment with what is true to you. And building a business, for anyone that's done that, I know how it is. I'm building one right now, right? Around these topics. It is kind of your whole life in the first few years. And if that whole life is not feeling right and true, girl, will you not feel good? You know?
No.
So staying true to that, it's important. And if you can support them in that in any way, I think that's very, very valuable work.
Well, I'm for sure going to try it.
Let's do it.
Alice Pavin, thank you again for an amazing conversation. Totally different from, well, no, that's not actually true. But substantially different from our first one.
Yeah.
If
Still
people
a good
want,
episode though.
yeah,
Still a good episode to listen to.
yeah. So I'll link to it in the show notes. It's episode 51. Where can people learn more about you, and where can they connect with you?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So if you're an ambitious woman in any way that wants to move through this process of going more closer to who you truly are, right?
Yeah.
There's various things I do. I do the coaching, I do different workshops. I also just share free tips, advice, practices like some of the ones we went through today on my socials. And you can find everything under Alice Pavin on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and also my website is Alice Pavin.
Yeah. And we'll link to all of that in the show notes. Alice Pavin, once again, thank you very much for an amazing conversation. Listeners, thank you very much for listening and watching in this case, because this also is on video. And until the next episode, as always, keep being awesome.